Alright, so this is going to be what if everyone got a grimoire. So with that being said, let's just roll the intro.
Bow in the presence of greatness. 'Cause right now that has forsaken us. You should be honored by my lateness. That I would even show up to this fake shit. So go ahead, go nuts, go.
Alright, so as you can tell by the title, this isn't going to be a what if that's solely based off a series, but instead it's going to be more of a hypothetical on, life. That being, what if everyone had a grimoire? Now for this video, to make it simple, we're going to be going over we're going to be using the Black Clover kind of power system when it comes to grimoires and everything like that. So before we start this video, and to say, if you want more of these type of videos in the future, please give it a like and subscribe for future content. Not only that, but go follow me on Twitter. I'll be posting a lot of my art there, and I want to try to get my followers up, I guess. So yeah, with that being said, let's get into the video. Now, what do you need to get a grimoire? First off, you need to be at least 15. Second off, to get a normal grimoire, you would need mana. So those are really the only limitations when it comes to who can get a grimoire. Now, let's go over the first problems here. Well, the first problem, that being, how do you get mana? Because obviously in real life, no one has mana. So the world would have to be infused or, be filled with mana. Now, this is something that will cause a lot of damage. And you might be asking, well, how is that even possible? Well, in the world of Black Clover, everything is basically filled with mana. Whether it be nature and the elements, such as, lightning, water, and things of that nature, as well as people, living beings, animals included. So the reason why I'm saying that it's going to be catastrophic is because when you feel so much energy within a thing such as Earth, there's going to be natural disasters, because the mana is just going to go sporadically everywhere. Because of this, natural disasters all over the world would happen. So things like tornadoes, hurricanes, earthquakes, tsunamis, things of those natures, even volcanic eruptions. One notable example would be Yellowstone, as some people might know, is a supervolcano ready to basically erupt. If I remember right, it's past due to erupt, and because of this surge of mana, I believe it would erupt. Now, what would happen in this kind of period of chaos? Well, in this kind of period, heavy magic regions would start to form. These are areas in which densely amount of magic would be compact in a single area, and these areas would just be super dense with magic and be almost inhospitable to those who have weaker magics. But let's get back onto Yellowstone for a bit. Now, if Yellowstone were to erupt now, the ash and the kind of sulfur from those explosions would be able to spread across the kind of globe, thinning out around Europe and things around that area. So it wouldn't be as bad as people there, but it'd still be pretty bad. The US would have a lot of ash within the air just because of how much it spreads. Now, with the inclusion of mana, it'd be a little different. After the eruption, what would happen, in my opinion, is that it would kind of explode and then kind of retract itself because of the mana kind of staying within that general area. So Yellowstone itself would become a heavy dense mana region, similar to that of the kind of volcano area in where Marileona trains the Magic Knights at. It would be like that, but I believe it would be a little bit bigger just because of how the scale of Yellowstone is. And that's just one example. Because of these kind of disasters, a lot of people would end up dying because of this. There'd be many tragedies, and the world governments would be in a kind of state of alert, trying to kind of maintain order. After magic or mana has been implemented into the world, this is when people would start to get their grimoires. Now, their grimoires would look something kind of different than normal. And what I mean by that is, from what we see in Black Clover, your grimoires are basically, they look or have the symbol of your kingdom, in this case country. So whatever country you're in currently, you would have, I guess, the flag of your country that you're in as your Grimoire kind of symbol. So for the US, it'd be the American flag, and so on and so forth. But like I said, it depends on what country you're in and not the country you're from. For example, Yami, he's not from the Clover Kingdom, but when he got a Grimoire, he has a clover on it, which makes sense. Now, let's talk about the types of magic that someone would get. And then after that, we'll talk about the effects of having Grimoires within modern society. To make it simple, we're going to categorize magic in 4 different parts. Now, these aren't like canon, like categorizations. These are just things that I came up with to make it simple. So the categories are natural magic, complex magic, modern magic, and unnatural magic. So let's go over them. Natural magic is basically magics that are based off the 4 elements or kind of a mixture of one of the others. So such as water, earth, fire, wind, and then anything that spawns off of those 4, such as steam, ice, sand, plant, examples like that. Now we get into complex magic. Now complex magic are things that are a lot further from the 4 elements, as well as having kind of a suffix or prefix added to them. So for example, we could take a lot of the Black Bulls in this, such as Gordon, who has poison curse magic. So not just normal poison magic, but poison curse magic. You see the suffix there. And then we have Zora from the Black Bulls as well. He has Ash Trap Magic or Trap Ash Magic. It's the same kind of concept where he has more complex kind of magic. Next we have Modern Magic. Now you might be confused on this, but Modern Magic basically is about magic that is based off like real world technology or modern technology, such as mirrors, compass magic, dice magic, house magic, even sword magic would come into this. So things like that would be kind of modern magic based off technology. Next we have unnatural magic. So these are magics that don't necessarily follow the normal kind of standards of magic, or kind of different in its own way. So obviously dark magic would be in here, light magic to a certain extent, spatial magic would also be in this category as it's so much different than everything else. And then things like concepts, like any magic that's based off a concept such as severing magic, dream magic, time magic, things of those nature would be in this category. So because of this, everyone would get different types of magics. Now those are the magic types, but what really determines their magic? Well, you're normally in Black Clover, your magic is based off mostly genetics. So if your 2 parents have a certain type of magic, it's almost guaranteed that you're going to have that magic, or a kind of offspring of those kind of magic, such as water to mist. Or if your parents have 2 different types of magic, then you can have a combination of the 2, such as water plus steel equals mercury with the case of Nozel. But since this is generation 1 of magic users, you wouldn't have that advantage or disadvantage. So your magic would most likely correspond with your personality in some way. And what do I mean by that? We know that your personality can influence your magic, such as the case with Mimosa, who was a very kind person, who was very supportive and therefore had healing magic. But after she met Asta, she wanted to fight alongside with him, so she developed more offensive magic. There's also Yami, who fights with a blade, and therefore all of his spells mostly correspond with a blade. So those are the types of magic and how it would affect you and what magic you would get. So whatever your personality is, you'll most likely get something that would complement it, such as Magna, with him being kind of a delinquent, a hothead, he gets fire magic. So think about it like that. Now, how would magic amount be distributed? Well, it'd be kind of different because, like I said before, the type of magic is genetics, and also the magic amount is also genetics. So in Black Clover, there's a big gap between magic amount between the different social classes. This is really due to genetics and nobles and commoners having the ability to really train their magic more than peasants, so that gives them a great advantage. But since this is Generation 1, you wouldn't have that problem. And because of that, strength in terms of magic amount would be given out randomly and indiscriminately. So no matter what your moral compass is, you might get lucky and get a lot of magic, or you could be a kind person and might get, the short end of the stick, if that makes sense. So with that being said, I'll give you guys a quick percentage of what I think the magics would be distributed, so the types of magic. So I think 60% of people would get natural magic, 20% would get modern magic, 20% would get complex magic, and then 10% would get unnatural magic. So things, like I said before, that don't really follow the convention of normal magics. So yeah. Now let's talk about the after effect of people getting grimoires. Now in this kind of chaos, a lot of anarchy would start to spring up with those who wanted to cause or wanted to do things immoral now have the ability to, since everyone's kind of panicking because of the different disasters, as well as giving this new power, it kind of gives the best opportunity to cause chaos here. But I would say after maybe a month, the different kind of world governments would try to keep order, because just because everyone has magics doesn't mean that your normal human weapons wouldn't work. So it would take some time, but eventually people would get back into order. I would say like a month, because although there are going to be a lot of people who exploit this, there are going to be a lot of people who are good at heart and help others during these type of crisis. That's why in things like the US, there are some kind of militias that you could create, like neighborhood militias. These are the type of groups that would help out the community in crisis like this, especially given a new power. Now I like to add this little side thing before we end the video. A lot of you guys might be asking about what about anti-magic, and some of you might not know, but it's pretty obvious that anti-magic is not magic. Now why use that? Not only has multiple characters in the series said it wasn't magic, Asta himself doesn't have mana, so he has no magic. The devil doesn't have any mana, so he doesn't have magic. Asta was not born with magic, and that's the whole point of the show. So it's not magic, therefore no one in this scenario would have anti-magic. So yeah, but let's talk about the societal changes that would happen due to magic being implemented. Now, because magic is a thing, technology itself would stagnate when it comes to things like transportation or medical advancements. Because of magic being there, it really gives the opportunity to just focus on things that would improve magic instead of improving general life, if that makes sense. I'll give you an example. Things like public transportation would be a lot easier given if the bus driver was, let's say, a spatial magic user. Just think about that. Being able to teleport saves so much time and resources that it's not even funny. Just think about how much things would cost less if you could just teleport. Now, because of things like that happening, the magic that you're going to be born with, if you're part of the second generation, is going to be very important. So I think a kind of hierarchy would start to form solely based on the type of magic that you have, because people that have rare magic will be more in demand and would have a higher chance of finding some sort of well-paying job in the future, depending on what you're going to do, if that makes sense. Now, you won't see the effect of this kind of stuff happen until a few generations out. So the first generation isn't going to really experience what I'm talking about to that extent. It's only until maybe the fourth generation in where the magic starts to really divide and how much people have, if that makes sense. But given how tolerant our generation is, we wouldn't really fall into the same kind of social kind of hierarchy that Black Clover has, as our society has passed that kind of point to a major extent. There is some sort of inequality within our society, but it's not to the same extent, not nearly. But as we keep going, I feel that things of that will be in the past, especially with magic being in this. A lot of limitations that people had before are just not going to be there. And magic in general would improve general life to a certain extent with the magics. And given this new power set, magics would evolve a lot faster than they do in Black Clover, given how much knowledge we have in our, world. So in 4 generations or so, I feel the magics would be a lot more complex than they are now in Black Clover, such as, let's say, one of the modern kind of magics start to evolve even more, if that makes sense. Like, let's say that someone has healing magic, but they are specifically for different diseases, if that makes sense. So yeah, to do a quick summary of this, at first there'd be a lot of destruction and chaos, but after a while, as things calm down, life would increasingly improve. So yeah, if you like this kind of what if, please tell me down below. And with that being said, I gotta do a Patreon shout out. So yeah, if you want to join the Patreon, then you can go to patreon.com/ComicSansTheMan. It will be linked in the description. Now let's get into the Patreon shoutouts. In our gold tier, we have Lyco and Dwayne Fenn. So if you want to join them, you can go and click the description, or go in the description and click it down below. Now, with that being said, it's gonna be in the video. So yeah.